Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm so happy you're here today and spending this time with me. It means so much because I know that as parents and caregivers of girls, your time is very limited. So I appreciate you taking me along with you, whether you're driving or cleaning or on a commute or on a walk, whatever it is. I'm super grateful that you're here. And if this is your first time, welcome. I hope that you find a lot of value in each episode. And I hope that you go back and listen to previous episodes too. And if there's ever a topic that you would like me to cover, I am very open to you sending me a message on Instagram, on Facebook, or just send me an email at girlspositivityclub@gmail.com. So today's topic is branching from last week too. So last week was a menu of options for your daughter handling stress in healthy ways. And really what I focused on in that podcast is a lot of practical tools, and I tend to leave those toward the end and work in stories that are relatable. And, what I started realizing as I listened back to the podcast was I really focused a lot on one type of stress, which was academic, because that was really coming up with a lot of girls. And so I thought this week I would talk about stress and friendships because I touched on it, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper. And, any of these topics, I feel like I could do a solo episode on. So if any of them are really resonating and you want more, just let me know. So friendship stress is very common, and it doesn't mean that your daughter has bad friendships or that she's choosing the wrong friends or anything like that. I think it can be a misconception for girls and for people in general to think you only have good friends if you never have any conflict or if there are never any problems in friendship. And I think if you're really being honest, and even if they're really nice girls, there are going to be times where there might be a different need from one person in the group or just a lot of different things that can happen. And I think normalizing that is really important because, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means that you're working through things. And I think that it's really being honest in friendship is really important because especially with girls and especially girls that have people-pleasing tendencies, it's very easy to go along with what everyone else likes or wants, even if those are not bad things. And what we need to do is really teach our girls how to work through things that come up in friendship that are normal. So these are some common things that I've heard from girls of different ages. And I always like to share stories because I'm hoping that you can see your daughter in some of these stories, or it sounds familiar from maybe something she said, or it just opens your eyes to other perspectives of other girls and what they might be experiencing. And I think that's always really good because looking at other girls' perspectives too is super valuable for you and also for your daughter, not just seeing things in her own perspective. I think that's really a good thing to teach our kids is how to be flexible in our thinking. So one of the things that really stands out, and I'm going to give different age group examples, and I've heard about these at all ages, but one of them is there can be a friend stress about being in the middle of a conflict between other friends. So let me give you an example. So I had this girl who is in middle school, and she was friends with a lot of people. So she had a pretty good size friend group. So I'd say like 8 to 10 girls, and they sat together at lunch. They all had kind of their closer people within that circle, but they all got along and things until they didn't, until there was a conflict. And the way that they handled the conflict was not healthy. It was very, well, tell this person that I am not going to do this. And then one of the girls that I'm describing, she was like the go between person, like the messenger. So it was like one side of the friendship, some girls in it were taking sides with a certain girl. And then the other side was taking sides with another girl. And then some of them felt kind of in between and they liked them both, but they felt kind of in the middle, like this girl I'm describing. So what she ended up doing was going from friend to friend, passing messages back and forth to them, communicating for them. So I think at first she felt like she was being helpful. And then she started realizing as it ping ponged back and forth that it was getting out of control and she didn't know how to stop it. So we finally came up with some language for her, and I'll talk with you about setting boundaries and things with that, because I think setting a boundary in that case and being like, whoa, wait a minute, my red flags are going off, this is not healthy, like I should not be give the go between my friends. And so that's something that does come up even at the elementary age and definitely at the high school age too, is like somebody feels awkward or uncomfortable giving a message to another friend, or being honest and just being assertive and saying what she's feeling. And so it just seems easier to send a messenger because then she doesn't have to deal with it, and it kind of feels good to have that help. So I think in this case, obviously, she thought she had good intentions in the beginning, which she did completely. And she started to feel that intuition and that inner voice that was like, wait a minute, this seems like this is not a good thing. I am not in a good position to go back and forth, because she really was neutral in the whole situation. She could see both sides, and she is not the one who needed to solve that problem for them. So that is one thing that comes up for girls, is when there are some girls in the friendship group who don't know how to handle the conflict. So they use the other friends to either get them on sides or to be the messenger between them. So that does happen. And a lot of this plays out at lunch and recess. So if they're older girls and they don't have recess, it usually plays out in the lunchroom or after school in a group chat. Or it is in elementary school, a lunch that trickles into recess type of issue. And so, yeah, that's very common. And then another one is, like this girl who had a lot of friends, and I see this at a young age too. It's like you have too many friends. So that's never, it seems like a weird problem to have, but it's like if everyone wants to play with you, or everyone wants to pick you for whatever it is, a project, or to hang out at recess, or anything, to come over on the weekends. If your daughter has a lot of friends, it can be amazing, but also it can feel a little bit stressful because she doesn't know who to pick. And sometimes there can be some jealousy if she's usually doing something with the same person all the time and she has a big friend group and likes that. So it's like the stress of feeling like she needs to split her time and not knowing really how to do that, or how to handle like saying that you wanted to spend more time with certain people, which is totally fine. So it's thinking of like, how do I communicate that? How do I explain that? And do I want this big of a friend group? Because I've heard from girls that it puts added pressure to have a lot of friends, and other girls love having a lot of friends, love having a lot of options. It's the other girls who get upset because they are trying to figure out who to hang out with when, and there's like a scheduling problem, or they're always busy. And so that can be a little bit stressful for girls. And then another really common one is if they don't know how to leave a friend group. So this could be like interests have changed. They just want to branch out and meet new people, but they've kind of always been with this friend group all along. And they're not sure how to communicate that, or how to get out of that friendship and make it more of a casual friendship rather than the people that she does things with all the time. And that can be something that is like balancing her needs with the group's needs. So also thinking like, okay, one thing I need is our interests are changing a little bit, and I need to branch out and try something different with this other group. So maybe she makes the soccer team, and all of a sudden she's very interested in playing soccer at recess. Maybe it's with a lot of boys, maybe it's with the girls who play club soccer or travel soccer, or beginners who just want to kick a ball back and forth and get control or whatever they want to do. And they're like, ooh, this would be extra practice time. I'm really loving this. And then the other group who you used to hang out with, it's like they're not really into soccer. So how does that work? My interests are changing. I kind of want to hang out with some soccer kids. It's not that she wants to ditch that other friend group. She just wants to really branch out and try something different. So that can cause some of that internal chaos, or that structure, that stress that is causing her to feel like kind of lost and floating between, and she doesn't know really how to handle it. And another thing that a lot of times girls get bad reputations for is gossiping or rumors. And I read something recently about different types of gossip. So there's the negative, is what most people think of, and this can cause a lot of stress for girls, is like saying bad things about another girl and making your daughter aware of, like, okay, is this a person who I feel drained around? Or Brene Brown says, is she a candle blower outer, which is like blows out your light? Like you just don't feel good about them or around them. And if that's the case, then, and everyone else is kind of like that in your friend group, it's like, how do I get out of this in a way that's not aggressive back, or they're not gossiping about me when I leave, even though it's like, well, do you really care if those people do that? Because are they your true friends anyway? But that's beside the point. But a lot of times, like, that gossip and rumor type of a friend can really start to make you feel stressed, especially if you're around that friend group who does that, and it's not right, and you aren't sure how to leave the group, or if they start gossiping or starting rumors about that girl once she leaves the friend group. So those can be really, really stressful for girls. And then another thing that can cause stress too is it's very common for when a girl likes someone, for the friend group to maybe tell that person that they like them, or to tell other people that they like them, and that causes a lot of stress. So that's like a rumor, that, or like telling a secret. And when you talk about secrets with your daughter, I mean, there are obviously those secrets that are like, safety secrets, where yes, you should tell if it's something that's unsafe or something that makes you very uncomfortable. But these are like private things that maybe maybe your daughter shares that you had an argument with your partner, and that was in your house, it was private, but it bothered her, and she wanted to talk to her friend about it. And then that friend, maybe she chose a friend who she didn't know gossiped, but told other people. So this would be like telling a secret that can cause stress. Or a lot of it is who they like. Like once they start liking, boys, then it becomes a whole thing of like the girl not wanting the boy to know, or she secretly does want him to know, but she doesn't want anyone to say, or like the friend tells before she was ready for that, and then she feels awkward because she's trying to figure out, do I like him like that? And then his friends get involved, and it can cause this whole big stressful situation. And then, so that can be one kind of negative gossip or rumors. And then the other is obviously saying bad things about the girl, just negative things about her, or making up things about her and telling people. Or also there can be positive gossip that is like, oh, did you hear that she scored 5 goals in her soccer game? Or did you hear that she performed in a musical over the weekend, and blah, 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 and like telling positive things. So I read that and I was like, oh yeah, that would be like, if you think of it like gossip, I think of gossip as more of a negative thing, but I was like, oh yeah, that would be kind of telling people's accomplishments without them knowing. So that one I'm kind of like, is it a bad thing? I don't know. But some girls don't like a lot of attention. So I guess that could cause it to feel that way, or feel like, well, I didn't want everyone to know that I won the gold medal. I think of a student who made it to this like Olympic trials in gymnastics. And it's like, she didn't want everybody to know. So that might be a thing like, hey, do you mind if I tell that you won a gold medal in this, whatever? Because some people aren't comfortable with like public praise. And so checking in about that would be good. And then there's also a neutral gossip that's just like, oh yeah, she was sick the other day. She had a cold and didn't come to school. So it's not positive or negative. I mean, of course, the friend wouldn't want them to be sick, but it's just like a statement of, oh yeah, they didn't come out to recess today. Just like kind of a statement that's a neutral type of gossip. So I thought that was really interesting to bring up, because I think those things can cause some stress for girls. And it's important to kind of talk about those types of things and like check in with her about are you okay with that? Like, would you be okay with this certain thing or whatever, if it's coming up naturally? Again, we never want to kind of project all of this on girls, but at the same time, we don't want to ignore it and just only talk about positive things. Like, feelings are valid. And I think the more we can teach them how to work through things and how to feel it, however long they need to feel it, and then process through it in a healthy way, is really our goal, so that as they grow older, they become women who can do that easily. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect, but it means they have a lot of tools and a lot of ways to process through it and manage their emotions, and also make decisions that are the best for them in that moment. So your daughter may actually be feeling very paralyzed by stress. Sometimes they can feel really paralyzed by it. Or she may just feel it kind of coming up and not really know, like it's little, so she doesn't know if she should say something. Or she may want you to solve it. So that was a big one for me. I wanted my mom to solve it for me. And it's usually not a good idea. And again, unless it's a dangerous situation, or unless it's something that's recurring and your daughter has tried lots of things, I did it to avoid, because I don't like conflict. I've worked really hard on that and setting boundaries and things, and I'm still not perfect at it, but it was really hard for me as a kid because I felt so much inner chaos that I wanted my mom to solve a lot of the problems for me. And that's not what we want for our girls. We want them to, yes, of course, ask for help, and we want to be a support to them, but we also want them to be independent and know some things that they can do. Obviously, they can ask for ideas and ask for help, but if we make them dependent on us, then I think that can continue into adulthood, which it did for me. And then I didn't know how to handle conflict on my own, or I didn't know how to process through difficult conversations, or how to bring up a conversation or something like that. And it's never anything wrong that my mom did. She was trying to protect me and help me. So I don't ever think there's ill intention when parents do this. I think you're just love your daughter and you want to help her. And sometimes we have to pause and think, okay, is this going to help her in the long run if this continues to be a pattern? So just something to think about there. So there are all kinds of things that can be stressful in girl friendships, but those are some common ones. There can also be competition, comparison. This can cause some stress. Like, if a girl is really good at this one thing that your daughter wants to be really good at, and it's causing her stress to be around her. So like, I think about in school, I was in a computer class, and this girl who sat next to me, I just viewed her as so perfect. And she typed really fast and she did everything really fast. And I was always comparing myself to her. And it made me feel inferior. And I asked to be moved, actually, because it was causing me stress to be near her, because it was like an ideal that I never felt like I could live up to. And again, that was from years of me not knowing how to handle things in healthy ways. But I think that can even be near someone who's like very good at something. For some girls, that can cause stress. And for others, it can make you motivated, because it's like, oh, if I'm around people that are better at me, and it's just like a reframe, if I would have known that, I could have been like, oh, well, she's showing me what's possible. But that's not true for all girls. And that can be like something to work on in baby steps. And it just depends on the girl and how she views that. But for me, asking and advocating for myself to be moved and go to a different seat was a solution for me. So what are some things that your daughter can do when she's feeling some stress in some friendships? So when everything's going great, beautiful. Like that's such an amazing feeling. There will come a time that something does come up. And again, I think teaching her that it's not a bad thing. It just means that there are ways to work through it in healthy, positive ways. And obviously, the negative ways would be to yell and scream at each other, to exclude people, to start rumors, start gossip. Like those are all the unhealthy ways to handle it. But the healthy ways would be, if your daughter, I mean, obviously you want them to have a conversation. If she's not sure how to start it, or if she feels very shy about it, she could write a letter or write it out, like write out what she wants to say. And it doesn't mean that she takes it with her and like stands in front of the girl and reads it, but it can help process through, like, what do I want to say? How could I say this? And what are some of the points? And so for some girls, writing it out, like the girl I mentioned before, the middle school girl who was between, she actually did write out what she wanted to say to each friend. And one of them, she did end up giving it to her as a letter. The other one, she just talked to. So it really just depends on your girl and what she prefers. But sometimes even just getting it out at home and knowing what you're going to say and kind of prepping yourself is a really good strategy, because then it's not like, and I don't think you can do this for every single situation, but it's like you're not caught off guard then of what to say. You're kind of prepping yourself for what to say to someone and some things you want to bring up in a time when you're not upset in the moment. So that's one thing, to write a note, either to gather your thoughts or to get it out. And you can either, she can give the girl the note when it's an appropriate time at school, or she can just know what she's going to say. And you can ask her, like, do you want to rehearse this? Like, do you want to pretend, you want to role play? And for some girls, they love that. They want to role play it. They want to act it out and decide what they're going to say and how it's going to go. For other girls, they don't. They just want to kind of think through it in their head after they've written it out and then handle it themselves. So I think giving them that option is always really powerful. And then helping her make that plan, because avoiding it is not an option. Once this is going on for a while, any of these issues, ignoring it is not going to solve it. And I think bringing that to her attention, if it's something small that happens and it never happens again, yes, it can be a bad day that someone had, or it could just be a situation that was unique or whatever, and you talk it out and it's done and over with. But this would be like recurring things that are stressful for your daughter, and she's just like starting to really feel it inside, and she doesn't know how to handle it. So helping her make a plan, like, and putting it to her instead of like, here's what you should do A, B, and C. Saying, do you want help thinking through a plan, or do you think you know what to do? I think that can be a very empowering thing to really put it in her hands of like, do you want support? Do you know what you think you want to do? What do you think you'll do? And if they want to process it through with you, then I think that's really powerful too. Some girls like to do it on their own. They don't really want your help. They just want to know that they could come to you if you need it. So I think just being open and not forcing it as like, well, report back to me what happens. I mean, obviously we want our girls to stay in touch with what they're doing and kind of keep us updated, but letting her have that power to come back to you if she wants to, or just having faith and saying like, I believe you that you'll handle this, is I think a really good confidence boost. Like I know you can handle this, and I'm here if you need anything. And if she needs more support, then that's great too. So just, helping her making a plan, and the plan can't be to avoid it or for you to solve it for her, because in the long run, that won't really solve anything. And showing empathy, I think, is such a big thing. Like just being like, oh, I know how that feels. That's so hard. And it's so easy for us to be very defensive and think like, I cannot believe she did that, and want to kind of, lash out or say something like, you have those thoughts, you're like, I cannot believe that happened. Like, that was so mean, or that was so unfair, or whatever it is. And just being that empathetic witness and saying like, that is so hard. I I know how you feel. It's really hard when friends are not getting along in your friend group, or it's really hard when someone tells about a boy that you like and you didn't want them to. And if you feel like that she's open to a story about you and how that happened, then that would be a good time to kind of insert that too. And really, it's just feeling seen, just feeling seen. I know sometimes when I've told someone something that was stressful for me and then they try and solve it for me, I kind of feel bulldozed. And so I think we want to avoid that as much as we can. I don't think the person meant to do that, but I wasn't really looking for a solution. So it really helps if you ask, like, do you want some advice? And it doesn't have to be like a setup in the beginning, like, I'm going to listen to you, but do you want my advice? That's your agenda. It can just be a natural thing. Like, do you want some ideas, or do you feel like you have it under control, or do you think you know what you might want to do? And that's really important, which is, do you need to set a boundary? I mean, showing her that boundaries are very powerful and they're bridges. They're not something that's like, that's the end of our friendship. I mean, if she feels like she's tried and tried with this friend group and she needs to end it, then that's definitely an option. But setting a boundary is just being assertive. Like, I don't like it when you tell me who I can hang out with and who I can't. Or, I really need alone time. I need to hang out with our group too, but I like to have both. So it's like just saying what she needs and knowing that it's okay if they don't love her answer, and that she doesn't have to do it in a sassy way or like a rude way. It's just like, well, this is what I need. I would really appreciate it. And just making it more of like, this would mean a lot to me if we could talk through this, or something like that. Just giving her some ideas of what she could say that would help her set that boundary in a way that is empowering and doesn't have to feel like the end of anything, or that they have to not be friends with that person anymore. So I hope these were helpful options for you and ideas for your daughter. And again, if there's anything else that comes up, if there's something that works really well with your daughter, then please let me know. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.